All right. Well, it's 6:05, folks. A little bit late. I like to start on time, but today is the 1-year anniversary of Bitcoin Filter, 52 big ones. All right, give yourself a round of applause. Yes, perseverance. I remember a year ago when we had our very first Bitcoin meetup, 0 people came. It was a goose egg, but that's okay because I put the whole thing on again the next week, and 0 people came. Oh yeah. All right. My ego barely survived, and I made lots of excuses, and self-delusion pulled me through. But we've been doing this for a year now, and well, I'm just really happy with the level of community and the interesting conversations we've had. And yeah, it's a real pleasure to participate with all of you. So thanks for coming. Episode 52 is coming up. There's no birthday cake. There's no streamers or fireworks. Maybe we can work on that for next. Maybe we can work on that for next year. But we do have a very average show for you tonight. Which means it's good, because on average it's anyway. Yes. Thank you, Deborah. We're gonna talk about local news, including some strange person that is trying to live totally on Bitcoin for 1 month. We're gonna go around the world. In fact, we're going to via satellite, actually just via the interwebs. We're gonna bring in an old-time Bali Bitcoiner from South Africa via Google Hangouts. We'll see if we don't have any technical difficulties there, but I think we're in the clear. Of course, we're going to go to Indonesia. We're in Indonesia already, but there's an interesting story that came in at the last minute from the Bank of Indonesia. Yeah, I won't spoil it for you, but it's going to be fun to talk about that one. We've also got Greece. Oh man, the Greek tragedy continues, and lots of good stuff posted on Facebook with that. So we will we'll cover Greece as well. All right. Oh, one last thing. There is a public service announcement on the Bitcoin Wiki about a problem with blocks clearing. Did you see that, Rick? Yeah. It's a little bit unsettling. Especially, with my history in technology, I know that technology can fail, and well, that's a nightmare situation, and it's something's happening. Yeah.
For those of us who aren't clear about the terminology, what's block clearing mean?
Okay, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Stay tuned. I'm kind of burying the lead. We'll talk about that at the end. So stick around to the end because it's actually. We're actually burying the lead. That's a very important story. All right, so with that, I will go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Now the folks at home are seeing what you guys are seeing here in the room. I hope you like my little fireworks graphic there. That's a little celebratory for our 1-year birthday party we got going on here. Let's see here. We're coming to you live from Hubud. Hubud is nice enough to give us this very nicely temperature-controlled room to have our meetings in every week. And so we really appreciate everything they do. They're also putting on Bitcoin Month, supporting us with Bitcoin Month this month as well. So we are big fans of Hubud and happy that they're able to provide us space. They got some press recently. They got into CNBC Asia, basically highlighting the co-working space here. Really great high exposure here. And if you watch the little video at the top, you'll see some cameo appearances from the people walking around Hubud. Check that out. All right, what are we doing here? We get together every Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, rain or shine, to talk about Bitcoin. But in the meantime, we are talking about Bitcoin online in this Facebook group, Bitcoins in Bali. If you're not already a member of this group, add yourself and start posting stories. If you post stories here, I'm going to do a little refresh on this. I think there's a new story. There we go. That's what I'm expecting to see. Okay, so you just post stories here. We talk about it online, and then we get together in person and talk about it. You'll see some of those stories that are on the top of that list. We're going to talk about later on. We also have a conversation going on Twitter. If you go to hashtag Bitcoins in Bali, if you want to reach us or you want to talk about something that's germane to that topic, hashtag Bitcoins in Bali. We've got a discussion going on there. And right now I'm going to tweet out a little Bitcoins in Bali tweet to let everybody know that we're basically on the air via Google+. Remind some people to tune in. By the way, you can watch those later. Where is that? Anyway, we've got a YouTube channel where you can watch these later. So if you aren't able to be here in person, if you're not able to watch live online, you can go to the YouTube channel and check it out there. I think I've got a tab with that on there, but I'm not sure. Maybe it disappeared. Anyway, so in that vein, and I'm really hoping that more people kind of start these conversations on Twitter because it's really fun. It's like a broader audience. It's like the entire planet, right? It's you can interact with famous and semi-famous people in the Bitcoin world through Twitter. So it's fun to get things going here. I tweeted this yesterday. Someone in Indonesia earned this 1 rupiah note in 1964. Today it's basically worthless. And this guy, Chris, said, "What's that in Bitcoin?" So it was kind of fun. I calculated it in Bitcoin. There's the value in Bitcoin, and I made the point that you can't. There's no way to exchange that kind of value unless you're talking about cryptocurrency. Like you couldn't. Like that Satu rupiah note doesn't exist anymore, and you can't send a bank transfer that's small. But I was able to, using change tip, send him point whatever number of zeros that is, 29 Bitcoin using change tip, which I thought was pretty cool. And we can already see that he picked it up. So anyway, Twitter is fun if you're not already there. Like I said, well, local news a little bit. Hubud is supporting us with Bitcoin Month. So if you're here locally in Ubud, and you want the best internet, the fastest internet here, you can come to Hubud and you get a 10% discount if you pay with Bitcoin. Very generous of them to offer this, and I encourage you to take advantage of this. It's not a lot of money, but it's a little incentive. Hopefully, people will want to save a little bit of money, and that'll spur them to become interested in Bitcoin. Maybe they'll try Bitcoin for the first time and see how cool it is. We shall see. There are some of the things going on as a function of Bitcoin Month. We've got, well, there's what we're doing right now, but we've also got the Bitcoin 101 workshop tomorrow. Last night we had the Money Movie Monday. We watched Money for Nothing. And there's some other fun stuff planned for next week as well. We might do like a little role-playing, game playing out in the courtyard here. So stay tuned for that. We've got lots of good stuff going on. By the way, did you guys see the new Bitcoin signs that they created for the front? Like they created these laser engraved wooden signs that say, we accept Bitcoin. Those are brand new. It's probably not as exciting to other people, but I thought it was neat. Okay. Like I said, Bitcoin 101. If you go to bitcoinsinbali.org, there's not very much stuff at this website, but I do have the registration for the Bitcoin 101 class. Go there and hit this register now button. We don't have we don't have unlimited seating, so you got to let me know that you're going to come. And I know some of the people in the room have already been. You're welcome to come again, and please send some people our way. We need new recruits. We need new people to participate in the burgeoning Bitcoin economy we have blossoming here in Ubud. So yes.
Gary, I have a question today from a friend. Will you give an overview of Bitcoin, what it's good for?
Yes, yes. We assume no prior knowledge of Bitcoin whatsoever. Someone could just wander in here accidentally, and we will sit them down and teach them Bitcoin. That's the idea. We really do try to start from scratch, but yeah, that's the idea. So please send them our way. Oh, there's the YouTube channel. Okay, you guys can just memorize this little thing on the end here, and I'll post it in the show notes. But what I wanted to highlight here is that yours truly, as a part of this Bitcoin month, I am trying to live my life solely on Bitcoin. Since July 1st, I have not spent any Indonesian rupiah. I have not touched any of those dirty notes that have germs all over them. I've only touched my phone, which also has germs probably. But so far so good. I have not starved to death. I haven't figured out how to buy some things, like soap, for example. I have showered. Pulsa you can buy with Bitcoin. Well, there's actually a video on this how-to videos on our YouTube channel. Shows you exactly how to buy Pulsa. Good question. Yes, we have a video for that.
I am willing to run errands for you.
You are? Do you want to earn some Bitcoin?
Yes.
Yes. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think so.
And would you be willing to give me a loan for like soap and
Yes.
And gasoline? And okay, I like that. All right, I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I am documenting this on the YouTube channel, Life on Bitcoins in Bali, July 2015. I've got a few little videos there kind of documenting what's going on. And I'm also blogging a little bit on Medium. I've got a few stories already, like 4 or 5 stories there. So please take a look. I'm trying to just see how difficult it is, kind of find the problems. And maybe a year from now, if I try it again, it'll be easier. So it's a bit of a base case. Like how difficult is it now? And then next year in July, when we have high season again here in Bali, I'm kind of wondering maybe it will be easier, or maybe we'll be able to see the progress. So check that out. All right. Finally, we're getting to the price. The price is down in the last 24 hours, but overall it's been on a tear. Why? Anybody have any? Yes, Grexit, the Grexodus, the Greximo. Pandemonium? How do you? Anyway, insert suffix on the prefix Greek. Yes, Greece, unfortunately, is having its problems. We're going to get into that in detail in a little bit. And any idea why that would affect the price positive?
Because they're cornered and they're trying to find a currency.
Yeah, you know, the Greek economy is ground to a halt because they can only get 60 euros out of the bank at a time. And think about if you owned a business and you had to pay a bill that was $2,000 or $3,000, you wouldn't be able to do that. And so that generates interest in Bitcoin because Bitcoin is not subject to capital controls. You own the passwords for your Bitcoin. Talk about that in Bitcoin 101, by the way. Show you how to do that. But as long as you have sovereignty over your passwords, then nobody can keep you from spending your Bitcoin, paying your bills with Bitcoin. There's no bail-in with Bitcoin. So Google searches are up for Bitcoin. Speculators are entering the market saying, well, You know, if people in Greece need another currency, maybe they'll try Bitcoin. More demand, steady supply means a higher price, and that's what we're seeing. So very interesting development on the price. We are in Indonesia. This is bitcoin.co.id, the largest Bitcoin exchange in Indonesia, and you can see that we are at 3,500,000 and some rupiah per Bitcoin, and their volume is way up too. This is abnormally high volume, over 210 Bitcoin in the last 24 hours. So Oscar over at bitcoin.co.id does a great job running that as the CEO, and I'm sure he's happy about this high Bitcoin volume. It makes for good business at the exchange. By the way, they do a great job. So if you're trying to get your hands on some Bitcoin, think about opening an exchange there. You just went through that process, right?
Very straightforward.
Yes. Cool. That's good to hear. I'm sure that would make Oscar very happy.
We can't exchange straight out of our blockchain.
You can exchange Bitcoin for rupiah on his exchange, or vice versa. So if you want to buy more Bitcoin for your wallet on your phone, you can do that. Or if, God forbid, you want to sell your Bitcoin, why would you do such a thing? You can do that on the exchange as well. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so before we get into the news stories, I've got a very special guest on the line. Let's see if we can bring him in here. Peter, can you hear me? Hold on, let me bring you in here. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
And can you see Peter now?
Yes.
And can we hear Peter? Say something, Peter. I can't hear him. Let's see here.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Peter,
How
are you? Nice to see you. Now, Peter is coming up to us live from, is it Cape Town, South Africa? Is that where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Cape Town. So we're in the middle of winter now. I'm in an area called Noordhoek. It's on the southern peninsula of Cape Town.
Yes, yes.
And we're about 12 o'clock in the middle of the day.
Yes, it's a little bit different there. A little colder, little earlier in the day, but it's great to see you. And thanks for making some time for us. You know, for those of you in the room who don't know Peter, he was here about 1 year ago during some of those very early Bitcoin meetings. You had a motorcycle accident, if I remember. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah. It was a complete coincidence.
Yeah?
It's a really funny story because I never planned to come to Bali. It was a chain of events. I went to the Inside Bitcoin conference in Hong Kong, and there I met a guy, a little Russian guy. I think his name was Dmitry, and he said, "Well, you must go to Bali because there's amazing community forming, and you must meet this guy Oscar Adamowin from the local exchange."
Yeah.
So instead, I went to the south of Bali and sort of figured, no, I'd rather go and surf. And then 2 days later, I fell off the one of those motorbikes and got myself a Bali tattoo. And I figured now, Hubud is the place to probably heal yourself. It sounds all zen up there. And then I thought, well, let me just check if there's any Bitcoiners in Hubud. It's probably very unlikely. And there he was, Gary, and he had a meetup. And I arrived. It was I can't remember the place. It was a place down in close to where W1 House is.
Yeah, Taksu.
And say again?
Taksu, I think it was, right? Taksu?
That's right. And there was Gary and Manu. And I thought, all right, so there are at least 2 other people. And that same day they told me, no, there's a place called Hubud, and we're doing a Bitcoin 101. And I think that day it was about 40 people, if I'm not mistaken. But it was quite big, and it was one of your first 101s.
Yes. Those were the days.
That's how I ended up in Hubud.
Yeah. Yes, that was great. So, you know, when you live in Bali, people come and go. Like, you make great friends, like Peter here, and then they're off on their own adventures. But Peter was here for a good maybe 2 months. Were you here? 3 months?
Yeah, I think the maximum is 2 months with the visas there, isn't it? 60 days,
okay,
I think.
Yes.
So I maxed as much as I could
Maxed
until I
out.
got kicked out, basically.
Well, Peter added a lot to our meetings every Tuesday, or we were meeting on Saturday at that point. But he also, was one of the first people to kind of get out into the community and try and get people to accept Bitcoin. He was able to get a local Balinese homestay owner to accept Bitcoin, and that's actually the first place that I stayed during Bitcoin month when I needed lodging on Bitcoin, the W House. And let me share this picture that you took. Let's see. I'll pull back to, can we still hear you, Peter?
Yeah, I'm here if you can hear me.
Let's move this. Okay, now everyone's watching this now. And if I go back to, where's Facebook? There we go. There she is.
Yeah.
The first Bitcoin taxi driver. Well, the Nyoman, the guy who owns the homestay, also has a taxi. And Nyoman is still the Hubud's local Bitcoin taxi driver. When we had the folks from Change Tip, they took over this mansion out back. And whenever they needed a ride anywhere, Nyoman was on the spot, ready to give them a ride for Bitcoin. And that was all thanks to Peter. So that's Komong. She's a little bit bigger now, Peter. You wouldn't recognize her.
Sorry, say again, Gary?
That's Komong in the picture that you took, and she's gotten a little bit bigger, I think, since you left.
Yeah, it's a year later now.
Yes, she's now working Nyoman's second taxi. Yeah. But anyway, let's turn off the screen sharing here and put you back up. So anyway, what's going on in South Africa with Bitcoin? I know that South Africa has a lot of capital controls. Is it taken off there?
South Africa, pretty much, it's not the same as Bali. There's not a big necessity yet. It has taken off. There are 2 exchanges at the moment. The bigger one is BitX. I think they're in Indonesia as well now. And they're about, I'd say, a bit more than a year old. What I did see, though, I saw volumes in South Africa and in India and Sweden in terms of local Bitcoins has taken off quite a bit, and I don't know what to make or why it is. In South Africa, we have a huge unbanked population, and if I'm not mistaken, it's around 80% of our population is actually unbanked.
Wow.
So in terms of that, I think there's a lot of opportunity for Bitcoin. There's some remittance taking off towards Zimbabwe and DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And there was also a first conference in January. In April. I did go to that. It was very interesting. It's kind of, I went to a couple of first conferences, like the Hong Kong one, and somebody commented to me, like, in the first conferences, the usual suspects would always be there. And I asked them, but who's the usual suspects? And of course, it was our Reserve Bank, which is controls the capital. And the other person was the Treasury. So I had a chat with him and I said, what do you guys think of this Bitcoin, and what is your opinion? And both the answers were, the truth is we don't understand it, and we want to find out more about that. So yeah, the regular suspects were there. There were a lot of early VC guys. The key speaker was Brock Pierce, and he made it very clear that he's trying to invest in VCs. I think he's got some investment in BitPesa, which is a payment system as M-Pesa, which the networks use by mobile phone. And this company, BitPesa, has put blocked Bitcoin on top of that. So it makes it really easy for people in Kenya to send and receive money from overseas. If you're a Kenyan, you'll see normally your credit cards, etc., just do not work overseas. They're just not accepted. So it's extremely difficult to send funds except via Western Union, which is, of course, extremely expensive.
Right.
What I do see in South Africa is a lot of talk about community currencies, more so than crypto. I've been to a couple of them. Yeah, I've got an interest in permaculture, as you obviously know, and I've been following the permacredit guys that run off Counter Wallet, and so I went to a couple of these conferences or meetups or the festivals and talked about cryptocurrency. And what I realized that there's always a talk about some community currency. Communities want to express their values in some currency. And one of the big ones we did have was the CASE, the Community Exchange System. But it never really took off. And I think the reason is there was no real fundamental change in technology. It was still server-based technology, so there was still a point of control, and who had to pay for it, and who had to get the developers to maintain it. So then a largest fraud wasn't community-driven, where Bitcoin and most of these, I wouldn't even say altcoins, tokens are more altcoins are old news now, and just a year ago, I remember how we sat there and altcoins were exciting. But tokens seem to have replaced this, and I see a lot of that in the Let's Talk Bitcoin show. A lot of tokens starting to kind of interface with each other, and I found that interesting. Also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Shapeshift.io.
Yes.
Eric Furier's kind of altcoin and token exchange.
Right.
And I think those kind of things will probably be the things that happened before Bitcoin in South Africa, or they'll probably push Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin does have a value already, a fiat value, which is understandable, where the other coins don't. And my feeling is they're going to become tradable tokens, and from there they will get their value towards Bitcoin, or people who want to buy into these communities or whatever their tokens offer.
Right. So that's something that we haven't talked about a great deal in these meetings heretofore, but there is actually a huge market for tokens. You might recognize them more as like frequent flyer miles, for example, or loyalty programs, things like that. That's huge business. In fact, that business dwarfs the market capitalization of Bitcoin itself. It's worth tens of billions of dollars, at least in the United States. So it's a really fascinating topic that I don't really know much about, but it's interesting that it's taking off there in South Africa.
Yeah, certainly the conversation around it are taking off. In particular, I know there's a biomimicry society that's just building out a token. The other very interesting one's called the Open Food Network. And what they do is distribute excess food from local and small farmers, and they're tokenizing that. And that's some of the first ones being built, on crypto. And they all serve different purposes, but they all kind of mirrors of some kind of value that is produced. And the moment it gets accepted by other value tokens or other communities, it actually has value. And that's interesting because it doesn't have that measurement against fiat the whole time, where Bitcoin does. You always have the worries of Bitcoin up, Bitcoin down.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
But you guys had a community currency for trying to remove rubble and all the plastic from the streets. Did that ever take off?
Yes. He's referring to the Cash for Trash program, which I don't know if it's been fully rolled out, but they're trying to make it take off. Basically, they were the winner of a hackathon that we had here at Hubud, and there's an economic side to that where basically trying to incentivize local people to pick up trash, especially recyclable trash, and then be paid for it. But it's not in full force yet. And I don't think that there's a crypto coin element after all, which originally we thought there might be like some rule for cryptocurrency to keep track of everything, or to allow a cashless ledger to account for all the trash. And a plastic bag is worth 1/1000th of a penny, but and sometimes they want. We thought that there would be a role for cryptocurrency in that project, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, it's still happening. I mean, they're still working on that.
There's interestingly one in a little town called Greyton in South Africa, and they have a festival they also called Trash to Treasure, and what it involves is they produce plastic bottles stuffed with plastic, and these become building blocks. They build educational centers, etc. with, and as the kids bring it, they get some kind of a token which they spend at the charity shops and its
Right.
seeds and vegetables, etc. It's not kryptonite, it's not cryptography yet, but it's an existing system that has a value for, collecting trash. It's called eco-bricks, and they use these stuffed bottles as bricks. So that could be an interesting kind of solution. The brick, the bottle equaling some kind of a.
That's fascinating. Fascinating. Yes. Very cool. Well, I mean, all the things that you're describing are community-based efforts, right? People in a small community kind of banding together to share food or to collect trash, create building materials. This is exactly what I think communities need. I mean, I love that topic comes up in our little Bitcoin meeting because it's so important. In the West, especially in America, I mean, we never feel like we'll have to rely on the other members of our community anymore. But we see Greece falling where they are unable to use their local currency any longer. And these types of systems become important at that time. When you have no money to exchange with your neighbor, you have to be neighborly or you have to rely on some mechanism that you've constructed that's more attached to your community and maybe not recognized worldwide. So anyway, well, that's all the time we have, Peter.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to see your face. We are anxiously awaiting your return trip to Bali whenever you're ready. I mean, we're still trying to get people on board with Bitcoin here, and well, you made a big impact while you were here a year ago. So
I will definitely return, and thank you very much for having me speak on your show. And
yes,
thank you to all the Hubudians and made such a pleasurable stay there. Yeah, and it'll be great to see you guys again, and I hope it's soon. Have a fantastic.
Okay. All right. Cool, Peter. All right. We'll talk to you sometime soon. Maybe we can have another conversation about tokens or other things that are going on in your neck of the woods. Okay.
That would be great. Yes, we can do something like that.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Catch you later. All right. Bye-bye. Let's see here. And sorry, guys. All right. We're back to. Yeah, everybody should be seeing this. All right, I hope everyone is seeing what we're seeing up on the screen here now. All right. Okay, so that was cool. That was Peter from South Africa. Thanks for bearing with us, guys. That was the first time we tried to dial someone in. That was a bit of an experiment. Hopefully we can do a little bit more of that. So, all right, now we're going to move to the news segment. This is some of the stories that people are posting on the Bitcoins in Bali group. Well, back up for 1 second. This is the movie that we watched last night. It basically touched on the Federal Reserve Bank, the role of the United States Federal Reserve on the world's economy. And I subsequently posted this graph to the Bitcoins in Bali group. And I don't know if this is clear to people who look at it at first. I mean, a lot of people are scared of graphs, but these two lines represent the two things that the Federal Reserve has at their disposal to affect the economy. The red line is the effective federal funds rate, which is basically the interest rate that the federal bank loans to primary dealers overnight. And as you can see, that has been zero or nearly zero since 2008.
Libor.
It's not Libor. It's the effective federal funds rate. And it's at zero. You can't really go below zero, although they're talking about going into negative interest rates.
Hasn't Denmark gone below zero?
They have, yeah, and so has the Swiss. And well, you know, if you get charged a bunch of fees on your bank account, then that's effectively negative interest rates, right? But you know, that's one of the things that the Fed can do. Throughout that whole movie, they talked about how they use that as a policy mechanism to affect the economy. And since 2008, it's been zero. So they do not have that lever at their disposal anymore. The other thing that they have at their disposal is printing money. They've been printing money to beat the band since 2008. We went from under 1 trillion to over 4 trillion. We're a little bit below 4 trillion now, but we quadrupled the money supply. So we really don't have any more money that we can print. They just ended QE, right? The last QE, they made a big deal of ending it, and they've been talking about raising interest rates. But you see these gray bars here? Those are recessions. And if I scroll out a little bit, you can see that recessions happen every once in a while, right? It's kind of the business cycle. And look at when the last one was, right? It was about going on 6-7 years ago. We had our last recession. We're due for another recession. What can the Fed do when we have that recession? They have nowhere to go on interest rates, and they have nowhere to go on printing money. I suppose they could keep printing money, but yeah, we are in uncharted waters. And given what we watched last night, I know a lot of the people in the room right now were there for the movie. You know, they really don't have any more weapons. So yeah. Well, yeah, time for war. Good point. That's a scary prospect. But yeah, war is good for business, right? War is good for the economy. Let's perish the thought. All right. So that was one of the things that we talked about in the group. Here's another one. This was posted by Rick, and this is a great article. Forget Bitcoin. What is the blockchain, and why should you care? And there's a really cool anecdote here. Imagine you're walking down a crowded street and a piano falls from the sky. As dozens of people turn to watch, the piano crashes down right in the middle of the street. Then, without a second to lose, every person who witnessed the event is strapped to a lie detector and recounts exactly what they saw. And they tell the story, and precisely the same story down to the letter. Basically, that is the function of the blockchain. This is the principle behind the blockchain, a powerful and widely misunderstood invention that could profoundly affect our relationship with the digital world. So the blockchain is essentially just a record, a ledger of digital event, one that's distributed or shared between many different parties. It can be updated by a consensus of a majority of the participants in the system. So, you know, you think about Bitcoin, it sounds like it's money, and you treat it as such. You kind of put it in your mind that it's just another form of currency, but what it really is an immutable ledger that's maintained by a consensus of all the people around the world that are running Bitcoin software. And that's why you can use it with no third party. The third party is the blockchain. And that's what this article is about, is how cool is this invention, the blockchain? Let's see. This is something that's very cool. Falsifying events in the blockchain would be equivalent to getting more than half of the people who saw the piano fall to all lie in exactly the same way at exactly the same time without any ability to coordinate beforehand, right? This is an immutable version of reality. The Bitcoin ledger, which is called the blockchain, keeps track of all of the Bitcoins. If I, Gary, send Bitcoins to you, Diane, then we put a little note in the ledger, and all the people running Bitcoin software acknowledge that that actually happened. Now, what's interesting about this article, let me see, what else did I want to mention here? The financial world has finally started to move beyond the Bitcoin hype, and some of the world's biggest banks are beginning to research blockchain applications. So these big banks, they need to basically perform the same function that the blockchain does. They need to interact with one another, and they do so today with very inefficient mechanisms, right? So they are exploring the blockchain. The idea behind this article is that the blockchain is really the cool thing here. Forget about Bitcoin. This ability to have a shared version of reality, to have something that that the entire planet can use, or a conglomerate of all the biggest banks around the world can use to maintain an indisputable version of truth, then the blockchain technology is behind that. And there's lots and lots of investment in this area, lots and lots of banks investing in this technology. We've talked a lot in the past about Ripple, which is based on this technology as well, where small banks are using blockchain technology to settle their balance of account with one another without having to clear in New York or the City of London or other financial centers. So it's very cool, very interesting article. I encourage you to check it out. One thing I will note is that blockchains cannot exist without some sort of token of value. Bitcoin is the token of value that we're all familiar with, and it incentivizes the participants to donate their computing power to the network itself. And if there's no network, then there's no clearing mechanism, and if there's no incentive of value, then there's no network. So it's interesting when people say, forget about Bitcoin, it's all about the blockchain. But any new blockchain would need its own version of Bitcoin in order to really work. Otherwise, it's just a database, right? And banks have those already.
Could
right?
it be seeds or something like that as value?
How do you mean?
Instead of Bitcoin, you said, I don't remember what you said. But anyway, could the value be seeds?
Well, I don't know quite what you mean. Seeds aren't digital, so they can't really participate in a global network as such. But seeds do have value, and ultimately, we're trying with any system, we're trying to symbolize value. So all of these Bitcoin and dollar bills and everything else is just man-made, made-up things, right? And at some point, we need something real, like a seed, to grow food. Really, we're essentially, when we're building all these mechanisms, all these symbols, we're looking for an accounting mechanism for real things that have integrity. So that's where seeds come in. You don't want somebody kind of misrepresenting how many seeds are available because they're doing some funny business with the symbols. And Bitcoin is designed to be that accounting mechanism that has integrity for real things like seeds. So, all right. So that was a great article posted by Rick. This one is great. Check this out. Bank Indonesia officials warn that storekeepers who make change with candy can face fines and prison. That's actually a sensational headline, because I hope they're not going to put anybody in prison for giving. Basically what happens is you've got, very small denominations of money here in Indonesia, 500 rupiah, for example. It's just worth a few cents. And if the cash register, they don't have any more tokens left anymore, 500 rupiah tokens, then they just give you a few pieces of candy as your change, right? It's, I don't know, seems kind of fun and interesting and nice.
The problem is you can't go back with a bag of candy and buy beer.
Right. That's what Blair was saying. Blair was saying that he
with the candy that they got pretty much. Still doesn't work.
But we talked last week. It's interesting that the Bank of Indonesia would even make such a statement, but the Bank of Indonesia is having trouble these days. They've got a terrible balance of trade with the rest of the world, and they are trying to protect the Indonesian rupiah. So how do you protect the Indonesian rupiah? You need to protect the demand for Indonesian rupiah. If the demand disappears, then the value goes down. And we are currently, the value of the Indonesian rupiah is the lowest it's been in a long time, right? Certainly over the last 10 years, it's at its lowest level versus the dollar. So that puts the Bank of Indonesia in a tough spot, and they've made laws about denominating deals in dollars, for example. They're basically trying to push demand for the rupiah. I don't think candy is the problem, but it is coming from that same desire to protect the Indonesian rupiah. And wow, it's interesting that this made the news. Check out that story. It's really short and funny. All right. It's time to talk about Greece. Does anybody know who this guy is?
The ex-finance minister.
That's right. This guy, no trouble finding pictures of him on the internet, has stepped down. He was kind of a lightning rod. He was the one, actually, I think this guy is more famous than the Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras. He definitely gets more airtime and very quote-worthy, you know, passing through the hallways and speaking to reporters. He's always got something kind of sensational to offer, and that's what makes the quotes. But anyway, this guy is stepping down, right? And a lot of people are thinking that maybe that will allow the negotiators to maybe start a little bit fresh, but Greece still has problems. In fact, I think that the government has rejected the very latest proposal by the European Union.
When did he sit down? Just the day before yesterday? Yesterday, perhaps?
Yeah, it was very recently. Yes, basically as soon as the vote came through, he resigned, and we've got some new people on the floor to negotiate what's going on. But I believe that the European Union has and the European Central Bank have proposed something, and the Greek government has rejected at least that initial salvo. Incidentally, it's my understanding that the IMF is much more ready to make concessions on the debt that Greece owes to the IMF, but the European Central Bank and the European Union are not prepared to offer such concessions because they have their own constituencies. Looking at you, Germany, they've got their own constituencies to contend with. And this article kind of articulates that pretty well. I think this was posted by Teddy. And take a look at one of the graphs down here at the bottom. This is why Angela Merkel has a problem. This is a graph of the balance of accounts between the central banks of those European countries. So assuming they started at 0 in 2007, over the course of time, basically, this is the difference between what is owed to Germany. This is Germany on the plus side, and these are all the other countries that are on the graph, Spain, Italy, and Greece, that are on the negative. So basically, within Europe, you can also have a poor balance of trade, right? So these Greek banks owe money to these German banks, right? There's a significant imbalance within the European Union. And so for Angela Merkel to just say, oh, don't worry about it, we'll forgive some of that debt, they're basically forgiving stuff that the Greeks owe to the Germans. And the German constituency is saying 9, which is no in German. So anyway, there's some other really cool graphs here. Here is Greek government debt versus Greek GDP. So yeah, there's a little disparity there. They owe more than the entire country produces. Here's the unemployment rate per age bracket. I think under 25, the unemployment rate's what, 50%?
Sure.
Yeah, pretty gnarly. A lot of kids with a lot of extra time on their hand to run around and cause trouble. Not good. This graph I did not understand, so we'll skip it. Do you understand it, Deborah? Did you look at this?
I don't know. I struggled with some of them.
Well, I know that Draghi said, no, don't worry. No one's going to, the European Union is strong and no one's going to have any problems. And he gave a speech where he said, well, we'll do whatever it takes. But now it's like, except if Greece wants it. Or, but yeah, there's a lot of commentary around what the 10-year bond prices and 10-year yields say about what's going on, and I simply don't understand what the 10-year bond means when yields go up or down, so perhaps someone on the group or in the room can illuminate us today or next time. But
it's just a riskier investment, so investors are expecting a higher return to be able to hold these bonds, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that these are bonds that the sovereign countries issue in order to pay their bills, and there's a secondary market for those before they mature, and they go up and down based on people's what they think of what's going on in that country at the time, and perhaps it's reflective of people's thought that maybe Greece won't pay the 10-year bonds that are outstanding now, and so it ruins the secondary market for those bonds.
It's nowhere near as bad as it has been. I mean, it was up 35% back in 2012. So that's actually quite surprising. Maybe people trust that they'll get bailed in.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something I've been meaning to look into, but I just don't really fully understand that. So I apologize. Here is a view of the capital controls, and you can see that people were anticipating the capital controls. Here's Greek deposit flows in billions of euros, and well, we just fell off a cliff as soon as people realized that there was a problem. People were going to the ATMs way before the ATMs were closed, right? And pulling out cash and sticking it in the mattress, or sending it to a bank account in France or Spain or Germany, even somewhere outside of Greece. And this is a graph representing the capital outflows. This was interesting, though. Greece is a relatively closed economy. This means a sharp devaluation would immediately make all Greeks worse off as the cost of imports soar, right? So essentially, if they were to go to the drachma and they were to devalue their currency, suddenly everybody in Greece can't afford Perrier or Evian from France, right? But I think the reason I highlighted this is because I think that there's this mega trend of our times of decentralization, right? We spent all of this time creating all of the globalization mechanisms that allow you to drink a bottle of water that's gone halfway around the world before you pour it into your glass. And that, in a certain way, weakens local people to take care of themselves, right? And this statement is saying that, well, Greeks are going to be worse off because they can't get things from abroad. But I think that this will force them to be more neighborly, to figure out how to help one another, to maybe set up a permaculture swap in their neighborhood, like we talked about with Peter, or create their own currency that they trade amongst themselves, right? And it allows people to connect again. So that's like the silver lining, in my opinion, is like, yeah, you all of a sudden you can't afford everything from the rest of the world. Well, maybe you start your own bottled water company, or maybe you help your neighbor do something that they need that they used to get from abroad. Maybe you can help them get it, and it has the opportunity to decentralize those needs into the communities that and maybe allow them to bond a little bit and support one another.
And that's already happening. Some of these stories started to come through about community action.
Yeah, I think that's cool. You know, these. You know, I suppose there's going to be a story here or there that's really tragic, but most people are not going to die because of this. You know, they'll find a way, and they'll get through it together. And I'll bet there's some very cool stories that will happen because of this. They probably won't make the news, but they undoubtedly will happen. You know,
provided there's little civil unrest, they're one of their largest exports, being tourism, gets a shitload cheaper and it's more competitive against Turkey, Italy, southern Spain.
Yeah.
Africa's out now, so all of a sudden Greece could be the place to go.
Yes.
Very, very, very cheap.
Yes, indeed. Good point.
And then co-working space, and they could be the guinea pigs for the rest of the world to see what on earth
Right. Maybe they'll become the innovators, the hub of some local currency innovation out of necessity. Who knows? But speaking of creating a local currency, one of the stories posted was about this guy. And Deborah, did you say that he was at the Singapore? He was. Oh, so you met him. I don't remember this guy, but you know, I'm getting old. My memory's like failing me sometimes. But anyway, this is a really interesting story. He's not using Bitcoin though. He's created another cryptocurrency, presumably based on some of the principles of Bitcoin, but different. And they've got their own app, and they are using some, well, he doesn't go into great detail, but they're using a different mechanism to secure the currency that doesn't require tens of thousands of computers using all this electricity. He calls it, where is it here? We call this asymmetric proof of stake. But basically, he's doing something that's very interesting. You know, a lot of people talk about the money was invented from barter. Like people started bartering things, and that's how money came to be. And there's actually very little anthropological support for that argument. A lot of scholars in this area think that money arose through mutual credit systems, where essentially you're in a community and somebody does something nice for you, and you say, well, okay, well, I got your back next time. You know, you helped me build a fence, so next time you need a chicken, just come see me. And they kept, you know, because they were in small communities, they could kind of keep track of who owed who what. And maybe when the groups got a little bit larger, they started writing them down, right? And that's a theory of where money came from. And what's interesting about what this guy is doing in Greece is he's created this currency called the Trestor, and he's giving everybody 2,000 euros worth of credit to begin with.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a credit check, a background check. So.
Yes, presumably there's some identity associated with this, but he's gotten some merchants to accept his payment, and he's basically allowing Greeks to go into debt to one another. And this little application and currency that he's created keeps track of that. And well, it's something to watch. It's an interesting idea. Definitely interesting.
Giving Greeks more debt sounds
What?
a little weird. Exactly. It's like giving a heroin addict method.
How much is 2,000
Well, but they
euros?
owe each other. You know what? One of the things that and presumably they it's, you know, I'm not going to be downloading this app and using this currency where I am. You know, if they can keep the economic activity local, then they could get something started. You know, basically money allows people to cooperate, you know, find the coincidence of needs and help one another. And with a little bit of mutual credit, it could be a good thing. Could be a good thing.
How much is 2,000 euros?
How much is 2,000 euro? About $2,500,
Oh,
if you know dollars.
Mhm.
Is that about right? Something like that. All right. Here's his website, trestor.org.
Is it just in Greece, or is he taken off somewhere else as well?
I don't know. Well, he was in Singapore, so presumably he's got some international ambitions. Oh, yeah. He's got retail partners in different parts of the world.
Did he mean that?
Maybe it looks like some in Singapore there, huh? Singapore and Jakarta. What about Bali? Hey, look at me, look at me. Hey.
Some Bitcoin.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Anyway, I don't know all the details of this guy, but if that intrigues you, check it out. If anyone's interested in getting into more detail on this next week or in weeks to come, I'd be happy to talk about it more. All right, let's see. Greece. Here's another article that talks about, you know, maybe Greek citizens using some sort of parallel currency or complementary currency. It's a pity that Stephen de Millionaire's not here tonight, because he's an expert in this field. He's been interested in currencies even that predate cryptocurrency. And there's plenty of experiments around the world where communities have come together, created their own currency based on things like time banks or mutual credit. It'd be interesting to get his perspective. In fact, I think he posted this article. So check that out, the role of complementary currency and how it could help the Greek people help themselves. This is kind of interesting. This guy, Thomas Piketty, he wrote the most popular economics book, certainly of the 21st century so far, called Capital in the 21st Century. And he's basically lambasting the Germans for having such a stiff neck over this debt. If you look back at what happened to Germany after World War I, after World War II, the world really was accommodating and forgiving of a lot of the debts that they owed, arguably more so after World War II than World War I. And a lot of people think that the austerity imposed on Germans after World War I is what led to World War II. So who are the Germans to be so unforgiving?
Awesome.
Yes. Anyway, get out your German dictionary and read that one. Dürfen wir Deutschen uns freuen, das schreibt die.
There's a medium.
Yeah.
You make it for yourself. Yeah, I'll post it.
There's a medium.
Okay.
He says in that interview that Germany has never repaid any of that.
Oh, really?
debt. Yeah,
Wow.
It's an interesting read.
it's very.
Fascinating.
And he's really smart man.
He's a smarty. He's got a big brain, this guy. All right. I think I'm going to leave it on this one. For those who cast stones, those without sin amongst us be the first to cast stones. We can poke fun at Greece, and there's a lot of people saying, well, Greece borrowed the money, they should just pay it back. But there's a case to be made that we are all Greece. Certainly there are other countries that are in the same boat, right, in Europe. Some of those countries that I had on the graph earlier, Spain, Italy, Portugal, they're watching with interest with what happens with Greece because they have a lot of debt as well. And this is a very interesting graph of the debt situation in the United States. I would say, who are we to criticize the Greeks for borrowing money that they cannot repay? It very much looks like America is in the same boat. This is a graph that goes all the way back to, looks like about 1970. And the growth of the debt, you can see that the green is our tax revenue, and this yellow is the deficit. The deficit is the amount that we spend more than we earn. So imagine if you made $100,000 a year, but you spent $130,000 per year, your debt would climb, and that's what's happening. That's what this is representing, the red. Every year that we spend more than we earn, we add on to this mountain of debt. And you can see very recently, I'll bet 2008 is right in there somewhere, the amount that we spend is drastically more than we earn. And so we're on this double black diamond ski slope of debt mountain. And well, there's no end in sight. And when you spend more than you earn, then you're passing that debt on to future generations. And whatever the Greek people are going through now is a little bit of prelude to what our children or grandchildren are going to have to pay when they have to pay down the debt that we're amassing now. So we are Greece. We've got the same problem. We're more powerful and in a different position. We print the world's global reserve currency, but that's changing as we talk about almost every week. And well, America someday is going to have the same problem. And well, that's why we get together every week to talk about it. We're looking for solutions to this very problem. Is it a complementary currency like they're doing in Greece? Is it you know, more community outreach and effort to connect and decentralize? You know, get things from your neighbor as opposed to get things from halfway around the world. I don't know, but it's something that I think affects all of us, and it's good that we get together every week and talk about it. And I hope, you know, we've been doing it for a year. I hope we do it for another year and beyond. And I'll leave it at that, guys. We're out of time. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next week. All right.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks.